Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules podcast. This is episode 80 of season 2024. It's our second last episode of 2024. So, welcome on in. Thanks for coming. We review AFL, AFLW. We look into it all. If you're new here, we heavily look at stats typically throughout the season. 2 episodes usually a week during season. At the moment, we're in off-season, so we're just doing one a week up until probably mid to late January. We'll jump back into 2, heading into the 2025 season. Plan for today, we're doing a 2025 predictions episode. It's way too early to be thinking 2025 to really know what's going on, but we're going to give it a crack anyway. Have a look at what we think might be going to happen in 2025. Next week's episode will be episode 81, the final one of our first season at All Aussie Rules. And we will be doing a wrap-up video of the year, looking back at the AFLW season, the AFL men's season, how the podcast has gone, predictions we made, how they've all looked. We'll be looking into all of that coming up in episode 81 next week. Jump in. Don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't already, I was aiming for 100 for the year on YouTube. We haven't quite got there, so maybe hit that now if you haven't already. Next year, we'll be going on to more platforms with the podcast as well, so look out for that. Hit that like button. Let me know down in the comments below if there's anything you want to see. Next week's episode, next year's content. Let me know. We'll jump into this episode now. Not 100% sure how long this episode will go for. Probably a little bit shorter than usual. The main focus is 2025 predictions. So we'll have a look at it, how we think it's going to play out. And then we might just wrap up this episode with a little look at the AFLW trade week. A couple of the big trades that happened. Have a little bit of a chat on that. And then AFL draft for the AFLW draft, is happening on Monday next week, so the 16th of December. So we may have a look at that next week's episode as well, just a little rundown of who has gone where. No further ado, let's jump into the first of our predictions. And there they are. That's our 4 big things. Premiers, I've gone Brisbane Lions to go back-to-back. I mean, it's just the way it happened. So I did a ladder predictor on Squiggle. I'll show you the link to it later in the video once we get to the actual ladder. Came out with Carlton minor premiers, but I think Brisbane, they've probably got better. Obviously lost Joe Danaher, which is a slight issue for them. Logan Morris is going to, you'd imagine, be improved on what he did this year as he develops and gets bigger. It'll be interesting to see how Hipwood takes that role as the main key forward, I guess, the experienced key forward. But they've added some midfield depth. They already had a really good midfield, so they've added more depth to that, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Collingwood, they've gone all in on 2025, there's no doubt about it. So it's hard to write them off because of that. Carlton, fell apart a little bit late in the season 2024. If they can turn that around next year, there's no reason that they can't finish top of the ladder. Looking at the schedule that they've got, wooden spoon, I don't think I'm going to surprise anyone here. Richmond are massive favourites to get that wooden spoon. Obviously, lost a lot of players. They finished wooden spoon last year. They've lost a lot of players. All the players that have come in are really young. They're going to be very talented players, don't get me wrong, but they've got a lot of work to do to be competitive. You'd think it's going to be difficult for them, but we'll see how that plays out. But I think most people probably are expecting Richmond to get that wooden spoon. Next up, these are my Brownlow picks. Obviously, okay, these are just far out, like, who knows what will happen next year. But, obviously Paddy Cripps is probably the hot pick after how well he polled this year. Lachie Neale has to be considered. Bontempelli's always a really good player, doesn't poll that well though. But these are just my top 3 in order, But, like, I mean, a lot can happen. So I've gone Zach Butters, has polled really well the last 2 seasons, finished third in the Brownlow this year. I can only see him improving, in all honesty, on that this year, or next year, for 2025. So I've got him first. Nick Dacos, I mean, he's polled really well in both the last 2 seasons. In any other AFL season, he would have won it last year, but if it wasn't for Paddy Cripps going absolutely mental on the night, well, throughout the season, I guess, technically, he would have. But so I've got him up there, and Errol Gordon, also another young player, 1 year more, or 1 or 2 more years on Nick Dacos, but the last 2 years has polled really well. 2023 finished the season with an absolute rush in the Brownlow, flew home, nearly came from nowhere, and then the next year, last year, he had a few quiet games throughout this season, especially like round 1, but he looks like he's only improving. His running's improving. I think they need to keep him out on the wings. They did bring him occasionally into the middle, which isn't the worst thing, but he's just so damaging on those wings and gets a lot of it. I would imagine he's going to take over as their best midfielder. Obviously Warner, I was about to say O'Keefe. Let's try Isaac Heaney. A really, really good midfielders, especially this year in 2024. But if he's not already there, I think he's probably their most important. Just his disposal, his kicking, his running, and his finishing ability is all really, really good. So they're my top 3 picks for the Brownlow. Let me know down below if I'm missing anyone. There's plenty of good players out there that it could go to. I mean, there's pretty much at least one player from most teams that technically are in with a chance. Obviously, injuries can affect a lot of stuff here. And, I mean, we haven't even got into pre-season yet. Well, we have got into pre-season, but we're about to go into the Christmas break, so there's still a long way to go before we even get to the first game and before people start polling votes. Next up, we've got Coleman Medal. I mean, Charlie Curnow, he won 2 or 3 in a row before last year, leading for a fair chunk of the season. Missed the last 3 games, I think. Something like that, 2 or 3 games. He was still in with a chance of the Coleman at that point, but obviously once he missed those couple, he fell away from Jesse Hogan. I mean, he's still one of the elite tall forwards in the competition. I think clearly have to put him in the top 3 to 4 tall forwards in the game. He's a proven goal kicker, someone that's done it before, multiple Colemans. I think Carlton are going to probably be better this year, or 2025, than they were in 2024, which might help him even more. So I think it's hard to go past him. I've put in Josh Tracy in there as my little smoky. I don't fully think that he will get it, but at the same time, he has a good goals per game. He has really good accuracy in front of goals. He has taken over that spot, I guess, as Fremantle's key forward, number 1 key forward. Fremantle may be expected to do slightly better. I mean, they should have finished in the finals last year. They fell away in that last month. But, yeah, I think he's a smoky to be really competitive in the Coleman 2025. Little one to keep in the back of your memories. And Jesse Hogan third, clearly the best key forward in the game in 2024. His contested marking was by far the best in the AFL. His accuracy in front of goal was up there with anybody else. Him and Josh Tracy, pretty similar numbers in front of goal. So, I mean, you can't just write him off after winning the Coleman. So, I think he'll be in the top 3 as well. A really, really impressive season from him in 2024. He's probably going to have some more help up in that forward line in 2025. Obviously, Stringer coming into the GWS lineup. It'll be interesting to see how they go this year, but I certainly wouldn't expect him to drop off too much. Next up, we've got our rising star, and this is the one that's probably the hardest to pick. Certainly before the season starts. You're not 100% sure who's going to be playing how many games. You're not sure who's going to get suspended. But these are the three players that I think, maybe not the best three in the draft, but the best three that maybe they are. I don't know. Levi Ashcroft, I think, is clearly the best player in the draft from what we've seen so far. His ball winning, his ball use, everything is really outstanding. He'll probably have less opportunity than some of these other players, especially all the Richmond draftees. I think it's clearly he's not going to get the opportunities that some others do. Having said that, I think he'll still play a fair chunk of the season, and depending on if there's any injuries at Brisbane, he may well end up playing pretty much the whole season. He's going to be a very talented player and someone that they're going to want getting as much experience as possible as soon as possible. So, just a random cat going past my house. So, we'll see how that goes, but I think if he gets the opportunities, he's the standout talent. Sid Draper in Adelaide, I think, is a classy ball user, someone that gets enough of the football. I think he'll get plenty of opportunities. Adelaide midfield isn't terrible. Obviously, Jordan Dawson, Saligo, and a couple of the more senior players in that midfield lineup. He'll get plenty of games. I can see him playing 15 plus games quite easily in 2025. I think we'll see a lot of development from him. I think he's a good pickup for Adelaide, and I can see him being a chance to win that Rising Star. Sam Layla from Richmond, he'll get plenty of games. There's no doubt about it. Their number one draft pick. All of their draft picks are going to get games this year. You'd imagine pretty much, with the exception of maybe one or two, pretty much all of them will. Just due to the fact that they don't have enough players. So they're going to have to be playing them throughout the season. So I think Sam Layla is the sort of player that, he's in a way a little bit like Harley Reid. I don't think he's as good as Harley Reid, but plays a sort of similar role. So I think whatever he achieves this year, he's only going to get better. So hopefully he gets some good development into him. There's plenty of other opportunities. I think the best ball winner from the draft is Jager Smith, who's gone to Carlton. Again, I don't think he's going to potentially play enough to warrant being in this discussion. Having said that, you never know. He's someone that in the future will really support Paddy Cripps and Sam Walsh really well in that midfield. I think he's a big ball winner. Probably the biggest ball winner in the draft this year. There's some good talls that are coming through. There's some good smalls. But these are my top three at the moment. But there's a lot of water to go under this bridge. This is a lot more crystal ball stuff than the Brownlow and the Coleman. You just don't know what's going to happen. These guys might not even play any games between them. You'd hope that they will, but you just don't know. Next up, this is the predicted ladder for 2024. As you can see, just there on the side, I did go to squiggle.com. I think that's what they're called. I'll get it up anyway while we're talking. So I did a ladder prediction on their website. Yep, squiggle.com.au is where you want to go. They have a ladder predictor, so you can do it there. That's where I did this one. Based on every game, you put them in. This is how it's come out, I guess. And yeah, we'll run through it quickly. We'll start at the bottom. Why not? Richmond, I've got winning just one game, and to be honest, it's hard to see them winning much. Anywhere above 3 would be probably surprising, in all honesty. But yeah, I mean, we'll probably see them win a game at some point, you would imagine. The next couple, North Melbourne 17th, they will be hoping to get more than that. If they don't get 5 or more wins, I think that's a disappointing season and a backward step for them. I think realistically, they need to be aiming for at least 8 wins this year. I only have them getting 5, but I mean, they could definitely get more than that. I've got a bit of talent coming into their team. It'll be interesting to see how they go. But at the moment, from what we've seen, I can't see them getting out of that bottom 4. But they really need to aim for 8 wins. There's no doubt about it. 16th, I've got West Coast. Just the 7 wins. 7 would be okay. That's probably minimum for a pass mark for them. A bit like North Melbourne, they probably want 8+ wins. I can see them getting up to maybe 9. 7 to 9 wins probably for the season for them. Can't see them getting many more. St Kilda in 15th. A little bit surprised that they came out this low. They don't have the easiest draw of the season. And in all honesty, it's hard to pick because 2023 they played finals. 2024 they started really poorly, but finished the season quite strong, but just didn't quite do enough to get over the line. Like they were just too far back in the end. But their second half of the season was really quite strong, and played good enough football in all honesty to be in that finals contention. So at their best, they're certainly a finals worthy team. I've got them on 9 wins. Obviously that swing could be quite easy. Like 4 wins, I mean, is quite a lot, but at the same time it's not. You think about it, you're probably losing 2 or 3 of those 14 losses are probably going to be close. So if you swing those all of a sudden your way, it makes a massive difference on the ladder prediction. GWS, the biggest sliders. I'm not entirely convinced that they're going to be the biggest sliders, but at the same time, this is how the ladder prediction came out. I think they've just got a really tough draw, as you can see from their percentage. 9 wins, 14 losses, and a percentage of over 100. I just think that they've got a tough draw this year, and it's potentially going to be quite difficult for them because of that. They've lost a few players. I mean, they've still got plenty of talent on their list. But, I mean, I might look absolutely very dumb at the end of the season. But, I mean, this is early prediction. I'll be doing more well before the season starts. But at the moment, yeah, got them missing by a few games. 13th is the Crows. They were my team last year to make it into finals. I couldn't fall for that again this year. Not saying that they won't play finals, but I won't be predicting them for finals like I did in 2024. They have the talent. They're not that far off the pace. But this year, they just didn't show me enough. 12th is Gold Coast. Not the toughest draw for them in 2025, but they haven't shown me enough. Really. At times they do. They look really, really good, but there's other times where they just don't get it done. Obviously, it was well publicised through most of this season how good they were at home and how bad they were away. They need to tidy that up, but it's conceivable that they make finals. Like, I only have them missing finals by 2 games, which, I mean, could quite easily be turned around. So, they're a team that will be potentially in finals contention. I just don't know if they will quite make it. In all honesty, Melbourne, a lot of people predict will be a bounce back year, which I can understand. Petrarca coming back in, he was really good for them in the first half of the year last year, and their second half was quite poor. But I mean, you take Petrarca out of the team and any team, and it would make a massive difference. So him back at full fitness. Hopefully Clayton Oliver has a really good pre-season. Melbourne, I think, still have enough talent on their list to still contend. In all honesty, I can see them playing finals. I could even see them making top 4 next year, to be completely honest. Geelong, this is a weird one. They're another slider. Tough draw for them. Obviously, being a top 4 team last year, you expect that they have a tough draw. As you can see, their percentage is really quite high. It's actually the second highest of any team in the AFL from my prediction. But missing finals, 12 wins, it's only a game outside the 8. Easily changed. A couple games out of the top 4. They're always going to be good. They're a team that has the talent, so they're always going to be in finals contention. It's going to be tight, in all honesty. A bit like this year, like there was 12 teams that arguably, up until the last few weeks, had a decent chance of playing finals and were probably good enough to say that they should be playing finals. Next year could well be the same. I think genuinely top 15 teams on this list all have a genuine chance of playing finals. I don't think the bottom 3 will, but I think the rest of the 15 all have a chance of making finals. Whether they do or not is a different question, different argument, but so Geelong finishing in 10th, but could see it being better. Another team that slides here is Port Adelaide. Obviously going to have a harder draw this year. They finished second on the ladder in 2024. 13 wins and missing finals would be disappointing for them. Obviously, their season, if they do miss finals, that's probably the end of Ken Hinkley. But they're a team that's talented enough to finish top 4 again. This is just how the prediction worked. I did it probably quicker than I should have. But at the same time, I feel like I was pretty fair on every game. So now we move into the top 8. I've got Western Bulldogs finishing 8th, also on 13 wins, just up on percentage. They're another team that if they miss finals, it's a fail of the year for them. They're a team that consistently shows that they're one of the best in the competition, but at the same time shows they're one of the worst because they can be so good and then the next week they can be really quite average. So they're a team that needs to find consistency, and if they do manage to find consistency in the right way, they're a team that can contend for top 4. The Bombers making finals, can they get rid of that hoodoo? It'd be an interesting one if they have to travel over to Fremantle for a finals win. But they're going to potentially give themselves a chance. I think most people don't expect the Bombers to play finals. I think they've got a pretty easy draw, in all honesty. One that can see them win quite a lot of games in 2025. They haven't really shown that they've improved from what they had on the list last year, but I wouldn't write them off. In my opinion, I think they're going to be a chance. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Next up, Fremantle, a team that should have been playing finals in 2024. Their last 4 weeks was quite atrocious, and they fell out of finals. I think they make amends here. They finished. I've got them finishing 6th. They're a team that could finish anywhere from probably 3rd down to 12th, in all honesty. They've got all the talent. They've got some good tall forwards. They've got a really good midfield. Their backline's pretty strong. If they can stay fit and healthy, they're a team that certainly can contend. Next up, we've got Hawthorn. Got them finishing 5th. 14 wins. Pretty similar to where they finished this year. They're going to have a tougher draw than they had in 2024. Still not the toughest draw of all time. They scraped into 7th on the AFL ladder. Which puts them in that middle frame of the scheduling, which has benefited them for sure coming into 2025. They're going to find it harder than they did last year, but I think they're still clearly a team that will be in that finals contention. It'll be interesting to see, now that everybody has seen what they do, how other teams counteract it. I think it's football for them is not going to be easier in 2025 than it was in 2024. But that's not me saying they can't play finals and can't contend deep into September. So yeah, they've got them in 5th. In 4th, I've got the team that lost in the grand final. It's going to be interesting for them 2025 as 2 years ago, they obviously got thrashed in that grand final against Geelong, and they followed it up with a bit of a disappointing year where they just scraped into finals and got knocked out in the week one of the finals. It's hard to pick yourself up after getting thrashed in a grand final. Not too many teams that get absolutely outplayed in a grand final bounce back and do well the next year. I'm trying to think back to one that has, and most of them tend to fail the next year, and if not fail, they might make finals but finish in that 5 to 8 range. Very rarely do they make top 4 again. It's not the toughest draw for them. I've got them on 15 wins, but I could see them having as low as 10 or 11 wins. They're probably most people's most likely to drop team. I think they're good enough. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of go early season, but I think they've got the talent, so I don't think we can write them off completely. 3rd place Collingwood, as I kind of mentioned before, they've gone all in on 2025. They've brought in some good players. They're obviously an ageing list, but they are going for it here, so I would expect to see them bounce back from where they finished last year, which was obviously a really disappointing year for them. But I think you'll see them coming out, certainly early season, a lot better than they did early season in 2024. Obviously a full pre-season this year. Last year was a shortened pre-season. All the players will be hungry to get back up there. So I think we'll see a better Collingwood in 2025. Brisbane, they're the reigning premiers. They're another team that kind of had a slow start in 2024. They'll be looking for a better start in 2025. They're a team that you certainly can't write off here. You've got to expect that they're going to be contending for most of the season. They've lost Joe Danaher, but other than that, they've still gained a fair amount of talent as well. And that just leaves minor premiers Carlton, 17 wins. I think their draw for this year is pretty lucky for them. They've got a pretty good draw. Whether it plays out that way, we'll wait and see. But on paper, it looks pretty good for them at the moment. And I think it's a bit of a disappointing season if they don't finish top of the ladder, in all honesty. They have all the talent in the world. They just got to put it to work. Obviously, if they did that, they'd also want to go on and play in the grand final and win a premiership. But we'll see how that all, I guess, plays out. Come next year. So that is all of my 2025 predictions. Before we run away, we will check out the AFLW trade week. Draft hasn't been yet. But yeah, let me know down below who you think will win awards or premiership, especially premiership. Let me know. Let's lock it in who the community thinks will win the premiership in 2025. So we'll jump into AFLW now. The biggest news story, I guess, trade of the week was by far what North Melbourne have done. There's a lot of talk about it. Every other supporter and team is like, what is going on? North obviously are like, every other team tries to get better each year, and I do get their side of it, but the fact that the other teams have allowed this to happen is crazy. Elise Sharon from Richmond, clearly top 3 player at Richmond. Most people would say second best Richmond player for the last couple of years, has been traded to North Melbourne for pick 18. It seems like an absolute steal from North Melbourne, who have had arguably the most dominant AFL or AFLW season in history in terms of win-losses. They didn't lose a game all year. And now they've gone and added in someone that's one of the better players in the league, will be a starting player for them week in, week out. It's crazy that this has happened. It's a competition it's a move that doesn't help the competition in my eyes. There's too much disparity already between teams. The top tier player tier is not like diverse enough. There's not enough players in that to go across the 18 teams evenly at the moment. Like North Melbourne have 3, 4, maybe now 5 players that are in the top 25 in the competition. Brisbane have multiple, Adelaide have multiple, all these teams have multiple, and then you go down to teams like Gold Coast and GWS and the Bulldogs and all these teams who get one at best. So there's just so much variety between the skill levels of teams, and it makes for seasons like this one where you have the North Melbourne, who clearly were the best team, and then you have Brisbane, Adelaide, Hawthorn, who all had outstanding seasons, and then you have the middle, and then there's a big drop-off from basically the top 8 down to the bottom. I know Geelong, Melbourne were probably 2 teams that potentially were in that bottom of the part of the 8 as well, but you look at the bottom 6 teams, they were so far behind the top 6 teams, and moves like this one is just going to increase that even more. It's hard to see what Richmond were doing with this. Obviously, I'm guessing Sharon wanted to go to North Melbourne, which, I mean, I understand. You want to go to the best team. But the fact that Richmond allowed this for pick 18 is absolutely bonkers to me. The chances of them drafting a good player at pick 18 is going to be lucky at best. You've got a ready-made player that you've just gone and given to the premiership team, so it's absurd to me. But I mean, it is what it is. We'll see what happens, I guess. There's been a lot of trades. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm not even going to go through any others. I don't think there was some big ones. There's some good names that have changed clubs. Some teams certainly have got better. I think clearly North Melbourne's got better. Hasn't lost too much. Obviously gained Sheeran. Other than that, I don't know what else there is to say about AFLW, but the fact that this has gone through has certainly shaken the competition, because I just don't understand it at all. But we'll see how it plays out. But in all honesty, put your money on Kangaroos for 2025, because unless they get smacked by injuries, it's hard to see a world where they don't win it again next year. So that's everything I have for you in episode 80, 2025 predictions. As I said, let me know down in the comments below who you think will take out the premiership for 2025. Second last episode of the year next week. As I said, we're doing a wrapped video on AFL season 2024. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you come back for that one. Make sure you've hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I do appreciate you for sticking around. I know it's the off-season, but the numbers have actually been pretty good in this off-season, better than during the season. So we're hoping to grow. We're going to continue to grow. Next year is going to be huge, so stick around for that. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.